You know how textbooks cost $300 and they release a new edition every 2 years that's basically identical to the last one, except they moved some chapters around. Yeah, your professors tell you that you absolutely need the latest edition or you'll fail the class, so you drop $1,200 on books for 1 semester, use them for 4 months. And then they're worthless because next year there's a newer edition. But have you ever wondered why this keeps happening? Why textbooks cost more than airline tickets? Why used books get blocked by access codes? Why digital versions cost almost as much as physical ones? It's not about education. It's about control. 3 companies, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and Cengage, control 90% of the U.S. textbook market. They don't compete. They coordinate. They've built a system where students are captive customers. Professors are unpaid salespeople, and universities are complicit gatekeepers. It's a cartel. Not metaphorically. Literally. And they've been running it for 40 years, extracting billions from students who have no choice but to pay. Stick around because by the end, you'll see exactly how this scam works, why it's legal, and why the same companies price-fixing textbooks are expanding into digital homework systems that charge you per assignment. This isn't education. Let's rewind to 1980. Textbooks existed, obviously, but they were affordable. The average textbook cost about $20, which, adjusted for inflation, is roughly $75 today. Most students could buy their books without loans. Used book markets thrived. You'd buy a textbook, use it for a semester, then sell it back to the bookstore or another student for 50 to 70% of what you paid. The book would circulate for years. Publishers made money, sure, but they weren't gouging. The industry was fragmented. Dozens of publishers competed. They focused on quality because professors chose books based on content, not corporate relationships. Then consolidation started. In the 1980s and 1990s, large publishers began acquiring smaller ones. Pearson bought Prentice Hall, Addison Wesley, and Scott Forsman. McGraw-Hill bought Glencoe and Irwin. Thompson bought Wadsworth and Brooks Cole, later selling to Cengage. By 2010, 3 companies controlled over 80% of the market. By 2020, over 90%. This is market concentration, and concentrated markets don't compete on price. They coordinate to maximize profit. Here's how the textbook cartel works. It's a 5-stage system designed to eliminate choice and extract maximum revenue from students who say no. Stage 1 is the professor adoption model. Publishers don't sell directly to students. They sell to professors. The professor chooses which textbook is required for the course. Students must buy that specific book. This creates a principal-agent problem. The person choosing the product isn't the person paying for it. Professors don't care about price because they get the book for free. Publishers send professors free examination copies. They wine and dine professors at conferences. They offer supplementary teaching materials, test banks, PowerPoint slides, all free to the professor. The professor selects the expensive textbook because it comes with all these perks. The student pays $300. The professor pays nothing. This inverts normal market incentives. In a competitive market, the buyer seeks the best value. Here, the decision maker has zero financial stake. It's like letting someone else choose your car and then forcing you to buy it. The professor becomes an unpaid salesperson for the publisher. And most professors don't even realize they're being used. They think they're selecting the best educational resource. They don't see that publishers engineered the choice architecture to favor expensive options. Stage 2 is artificial versioning. Every 2 to 3 years, publishers release a new edition. The changes are minimal. They rearrange chapters. They update a few statistics. They add some new problems. But the core content? Identical. Calculus hasn't changed. Economics fundamentals haven't changed. Biology basics haven't changed. These are established fields. There's no reason for new editions except to kill the used book market. Here's the strategy. Professor assigns the 10th edition. Students buy new or used. Used books circulate. Some students buy from other students. The publisher makes no money on used sales, so the publisher releases the 11th edition. They tell the professor it's updated and improved. They offer free materials for the new edition. The professor switches to the 11th edition. Now all the used 10th edition books are worthless. Students can't use them because the homework problems don't match. The page numbers are different. The professor requires the new edition. Students must buy new books. The used market is destroyed. The publisher captures all sales. The data proves this. From 1980 to 2020, textbook prices increased 1,041%, almost 4 times the rate of inflation. Housing increased 375%. Medical care increased 575%. Textbooks increased 1,041%. This isn't normal price inflation. This is monopolistic extraction, and it accelerated after consolidation. Before 2000, new editions appeared every 4 to 5 years. After 2000, every 2 to 3 years. After 2010, every 2 years. The cycle is speeding up because the cartel has more control. Stage 3 is bundling. Publishers don't just sell textbooks anymore. They bundle textbooks with access codes. The access code gives you online homework, quizzes, and supplementary materials. And here's the trick. You need the access code to pass the class. The professor uses the publisher's online platform for assignments. You can't complete the work without buying the access code. So even if you find a used textbook for $50, you still need to buy the access code for $150. The used book becomes worthless because the real product is the access code, not the book. This is genius from the publisher's perspective. Used books were their biggest problem. Students would buy used, depriving publishers of revenue. Access codes solve this. They create a consumable product that can't be resold. Once you use the code, it's dead. The next student must buy a new one. Publishers effectively eliminated the used book market. And they did it by moving the actual product from the book to the digital code. Now the book is just a physical attachment to the real product, the online platform, and universities are complicit. They allow professors to require these platforms. They integrate them into course management systems. They don't question why students are paying $150 for homework access. Because universities benefit too. Platforms reduce professor workload. Auto-graded assignments mean less grading. Less grading means professors can teach more students. More students mean more tuition revenue. Everyone profits except the student. Stage 4 is price discrimination. Publishers charge different prices in different countries. The exact same textbook that costs $300 in the US costs $50 in India or $30 in Southeast Asia. Why? Because publishers maximize profit by pricing according to what the market can bear. US students can borrow money through loans. International students in developing countries can't. So publishers charge less abroad, but they prevent arbitrage. They print international editions with different ISBNs and warnings, like not for sale in the US. They track imports and sue distributors who ship international editions to the US. This is price discrimination. It's legal, and it proves textbooks aren't priced based on production costs. If a book costs $300 in the US and $50 in India, the true cost to produce and distribute it is probably $20. The rest is pure profit extracted from markets where students QE and refuse. Some students figured this out. In the 2000s and 2010s, students started importing textbooks from India and Thailand. They buy the international edition for $40 and save $260. Publishers responded by lobbying for stricter copyright enforcement. They sued college bookstores selling international editions. They threatened online marketplaces. They worked with customs to seize shipments. The Supreme Court ruled in 2013 that reselling foreign textbooks is legal under the first sale doctrine, but publishers adapted. They added region-locked access codes. The International Edition comes with an access code that only works in that country. If you buy an Indian textbook, the code won't work on the US platform, so you still have to buy the US edition for the code. Problem solved for the publishers. Stage 5 is digital expansion. Publishers realized textbooks are a dying format. Students were finding PDFs online. Piracy was cutting into sales. So publishers pivoted to digital platforms. Now they sell subscription-based access. You don't buy a textbook. You rent access to content and homework systems for 1 semester. After the semester, access expires. You own nothing. This is the ultimate consumable product. No used market. No reselling, no sharing. Just recurring revenue. And it's more profitable than textbooks ever were. A textbook costs money to print and ship. A digital platform has near zero marginal cost. Once it's built, serving 1 student or 1 million students costs the same. The profit margin is enormous. Pearson's revenue from digital products grew from 30% in 2010 to over 60% by 2020. They retransitioning the entire business model from selling books to selling subscriptions. And the subscriptions cost just as much as textbooks did. You're not saving money going digital. You're just losing ownership. Now let's talk numbers because the scale is staggering. The U.S. higher education textbook market is worth $5 billion annually. Students spend an average of $1,200 per year on textbooks and materials. Over 4 years, that's $4,800 per student. With 20 million students enrolled in higher education, that's $24 billion in total spending over 4 years. But here's the kicker. The actual cost to produce a textbook is less than 10% of the sale price. A $300 textbook costs about $20 to $32 to write, edit, print, and distribute. The rest is profit and overhead. And by overhead, I mean executive salaries, shareholder dividends, and lobbying. The 3 big publishers, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and Cengage, are publicly traded. They report earnings. Pearson's profit margin on textbooks is around 20 to 25%. McGraw-Hill, similar. That means for every $300 textbook sold, $60 to $75 is pure profit. Multiply that by millions of textbooks sold annually, and you see why this industry is so resistant to change. The executives at Pearson make millions annually. The shareholders demand returns. The system is optimized for extraction, not education. And the publishers protect their cartel aggressively. They lobby against open educational resources, OER. OER are free or low-cost textbooks created by professors and released under open licenses. They're just as good as commercial textbooks. Better in some cases because they're customizable. But publishers fight them. They fund studies claiming OER are lower quality, not peer-reviewed, lack support materials. They tell professors that switching to OER means losing test banks and supplementary materials. They make adoption difficult, and it works. OER adoption is growing, but slowly. As of 2024, only about 15% of courses use OER. The rest still use commercial textbooks because publishers have made alternatives inconvenient. Publishers also lobby at the state level. Several states have tried to mandate affordable textbooks or promote AOR. Publishers send lobbyists. They donate to campaigns. They argue that quality education requires commercial materials. They position themselves as defenders of academic standards. They kill or water down legislation. The pattern repeats in state after state. The textbook cartel protects its market through political influence. Here's where it gets darker. The same publishers moving into K-12 education, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and Cengage, now sell curriculum packages to school districts. Textbooks, digital platforms, assessments, teacher training, all bundled. School districts sign multi-year contracts worth millions. The publishers lock in entire districts. And because K-12 is taxpayer-funded, the publishers are now extracting from taxpayers instead of students directly. Same business model, bigger market, and they're expanding into testing. Pearson owns or operates standardized tests in multiple states. They sell the curriculum, the textbooks, and the tests that measure whether students learned the curriculum. This is vertical integration. They control the entire education supply chain, and they profit at every stage. The conflict of interest is obvious. Pearson profits from selling materials and from administering tests. They have incentive to make the tests require their materials. They're not just selling textbooks, they're defining what students need to know. Now let's compare this to other cartels. OPEC is a cartel. They coordinate oil production to control prices. People understand that's a cartel. But OPEC doesn't have captive customers the way textbook publishers do. You can drive less, use public transit, buy an EV. You have alternatives. Students don't. If the professor assigns a $300 textbook, you buy it or you fail. There's no alternative. Diamond cartels work similarly. De Beers controlled diamond supply for a century. They stored excess diamonds to keep prices high. But diamonds are luxury goods. You don't need them. Textbooks are required for degrees. The degree is required for jobs. The cartel has you trapped. The textbook cartel is more coercive than most monopolies because the product is tied to education, which is tied to employment, which is tied to survival in the modern economy. You can't opt out without sacrificing your future. And the publishers know this. They've engineered a system where every pressure point favors them. The professor chooses without paying. The student pays without choosing. The university facilitates without liability. And the publishers profit without competition. 3 companies control 90% of the textbook market. They release new editions every 2 years to kill used book sales. They bundle textbooks with access codes you can't resell. They charge $300 in the US and $50 abroad, proving the real cost is $20. They're removing to digital subscriptions where you own nothing and pay forever. And they lobby to block alternatives while expanding into K-12 and standardized testing. This isn't about education. It's about extraction. And it's legal because they structured it carefully to avoid antitrust enforcement, while maximizing profit from students who have no choice. This is what Histoprophet exposes. It's the systems built to trap you, the companies profiting from captivity, and the mechanisms that keep it running. If this video showed you how textbook publishers engineered a cartel that extracts billions from students, subscribe to Histoprofit. Because this pattern repeats across industries. Pharma, telecom, food, all using the same playbook. Next episode, how pharmaceutical companies use patent evergreening to keep drug prices high for decades after the original patent expires. Same extraction model, different industry. Subscribe now. History isn't over. It's the blueprint for how you're being exploited today. It's extortion with a syllabus.